I want to start by saying this first. I live a pretty straight-edge lifestyle. I don't drink, I don't use drugs. So I know for a fact that what I saw and heard on New Year's Eve wasn't the result of a hallucination or a drunken mistake. What happened that night was very real. I live on the outskirts of a small southern town, the kind of place surrounded by long, dark country roads and endless stretches of forest. Some of my friends live even farther out, deep in the boondocks, where the roads narrow and the trees press in from both sides. One of those friends is Darren. Every year, his family throws a New Year's Eve party at their house. It's a big event. Family, friends, neighbors, people coming and going all night. Their neighborhood is one of the nicer ones in the area, but the only way to get there is by driving those dark country back roads. That night, the weather had just turned cold. The air was sharp. The road was bumpy and uneven, and the darkness felt heavier than usual. I usually don't drive with my high beams on. I hate when other drivers blind me with theirs. But that night, I didn't have a choice. Even with my brights on, it was hard to see where the road twisted or what waited beyond the trees. There aren't any houses along that stretch of road, just one old shack. It looks abandoned, but sometimes, when I pass it, I swear I see lights on inside. A few minutes into the drive, my headlights caught something ahead, something white. At first, I thought it was a sign. Then I realized it was a person. A woman stood on the side of the road, completely still, her back pressed against the tree line. She was wearing a long white dress, far too thin for the cold. She wasn't waving. She wasn't moving, just standing there. I didn't slow down. I didn't turn off my brights. As I passed her, I felt relieved when she didn't step into the road and force me to stop. But then, something made me check my rearview mirror. In the red glow of my taillights, I saw her turn. She stayed in the same exact spot, but her body had twisted as if she were watching me leave. That's when I knew. That was not another party guest. I arrived at Darren's house without any other issues. I parked, went inside, and tried to forget what I'd seen. The night went on like normal. Music, laughter, the countdown. We watched the ball drop in New York, then our own time zone hit midnight. People slowly started to leave. I stayed behind to help clean up, like I usually did. By the time I finally left, my car was the only one still parked out front. When I turned the engine on, a low tire pressure light came on. My car is older, so it didn't tell me which tire, or how bad it was. I tried not to panic. Cold weather does that sometimes, especially after a warm stretch. Still, I thought about the woman. Was she still out there? There was another route home I could take, but it would add at least 20 minutes. It was late, and I didn't want to be driving around longer than I had to. So I took the same road. Only a few minutes in, I knew something was wrong. I could feel it through the steering wheel. Then I heard it, a horrible scraping sound, like bare metal grinding against the road. Slowly, my car came to a stop. Against my better judgment, I got out to see what was wrong. As soon as I shut the door, the car's lights turned off automatically. I was plunged into darkness. Using my phone's flashlight, I checked the tires. My stomach dropped. Every single one of them had been ripped to shreds. Not punctured, torn apart, all four. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Then the wind stopped. The trees stopped swaying. The night went completely silent. I froze. I had never heard silence like that before. Then, a twig snapped. Something was moving in the woods. I turned my phone light off instantly, and that's when I heard it. "I see you." The voice was soft, female, calm. It came from the darkness of the tree line, no more than 15 feet away. My stomach dropped. I couldn't scream. Then she spoke again. "Can you see me?" I turned my flashlight back on. Standing at the edge of the trees was the woman in the white dress. Up close, she was worse than I imagined. The gown was filthy, stained with dark marks. Her body was unnaturally thin. Her face was wrong. It looked like half of her jaw was missing, and yet she was smiling. I ran. I don't remember how long or how far. Only the sound of branches snapping behind me. She was chasing me. I made it back to Darren's house and pounded on the door. His mother answered and immediately pulled me inside. I stayed the night. The police were called. I thought it was over. Until 3:14 a.m., I woke up to the sound of tapping on the second-story window. Then the same voice whispered again, "I see you." In the morning, we found a large rusty knife in the yard. The police searched the shack near the road. No one lived there, only dead animals scattered through the woods. The woman was never found. When I was 26, I took a trip to San Diego by plane. I stayed with a friend for a few days and booked a late flight back home. My flight landed at midnight. By the time I got off the plane and made it to ground transportation, it was around 12:30 a.m. I waved down a random taxi in the designated pickup area and gave the driver my home address. He told me he'd take me for $30. That was a really good deal, much cheaper than Uber. He stepped out to help me with my bag, but I told him it was fine to keep it inside. So he lifted my bag onto the seat behind him, on the left side of the van. I was sitting diagonally across from him. He got back into the driver's seat, pulled up directions to my apartment, and we were on our way. My apartment was about 30 minutes from the airport at that hour. There was no traffic. We got on the highway quickly and started moving fast. I noticed him staring at me through the rearview mirror, not once, twice. The second time he spoke. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "San Diego," I said. "Oh," he replied. "Very nice." Then he asked what I was doing there. I told him I was visiting a friend. He smiled and said, "Is your friend as pretty as you?" I laughed out of instinct, but the comment made my skin crawl. It was only the third thing he'd said to me on the ride. From there, his questions stayed flirty. "What's a pretty girl like you doing traveling all by yourself?" I answered, slightly annoyed. "Well, I wasn't alone. I just said I was visiting a friend." He pushed back. "Flying alone means you're traveling alone." I told him we'd have to agree to disagree. He laughed and said he was only teasing. This man was at least 45, and him hitting on a woman in her 20s, alone, late at night, felt wrong. As we continued down the highway, I saw the familiar overpass for my exit coming up, but he didn't slow down. "That's my exit," I said as we passed right by it. He didn't stop. I said it again, louder this time. He apologized and said he'd take the next one. I tried to glance at his phone to see the address, but the screen was angled away from me. The next exit was about a mile down. I sat forward in my seat now. As we approached it, I said clearly, "You need to get off here." Without acknowledging me, he turned on his blinker and merged off the highway. I caught his eyes in the mirror again. This time he looked annoyed. Less than a minute later, he asked me if I had a boyfriend. I answered instantly, "Yes, he lives with me." He looked at me again. Then he asked, "What's your boyfriend's name?" That was enough. I told him I was putting my headphones in. I put my AirPods on, even though they were basically dead. I just wanted him to stop talking. I texted my family and close friends about the situation. I shared my location, just in case. We were back in my town now. We stopped at a red light. I looked in the mirror and all I could see were his eyes. Staring, not blinking. The light turned green. He didn't move. I had to tell him the light was green. Only then did he start driving. No one was answering my texts except my older brother. He lives 2 hours away. He told me if I felt unsafe, I should get out of the car. We stopped at another red light. I felt his eyes on me again. That's when I noticed a police car parked in an empty lot nearby. Without thinking, I grabbed my bag and slid the van door open. He started yelling, "What are you doing?" He tried to close the door using the power button. I forced it open, and the second it was wide enough, I ran. I ran straight to the police car. The taxi driver didn't chase me. He didn't get out, he just drove away. The officer rolled his window down. I told him everything. He let me get in the back seat and drove me home. I thought it was over. That night, as I lay in bed, there was a knock at my front door, then another, then silence, then more knocking. I didn't move. Eventually, it stopped. The next day, my neighbor called me. He said my dad had been there trying to get into my apartment. My dad hadn't been there. That night, something felt wrong in my apartment. I heard creaks, pressure on the floor. Then a voice from the hallway said, "I wasn't going to hurt you." I ran. The police found the back door open. Whoever it was had fled. I stayed with my parents for a week. I installed cameras. I bought a taser. And to this day, I still wonder, was that even a real taxi driver?